Welcome to this week's episode of Fresh Corduroy. I'm your host, Craig Zolan. This week's episode is with Lyndsay Strange, who is the owner and operator of Party Beach Ski Camps, which is a free skiing development camp held in the summer. She is also a coach to the US Para Alpine team, and she has been a coach to Team Mexico's Sarah Schlepper at the 2017 World Championships, the 2018 Olympics in Pyeongchang, the 2022 Olympics in Beijing, and most recently the 2025 World Championships at Saalbach, Austria. My conversation with Lyndsay was really interesting, learning about her very eclectic life in the ski industry and how she got to coach at the Olympics, among other things. So let's go get some fresh corduroy with Lyndsay. Hello, today we have Lyndsay Strange. Lyndsay, welcome to Fresh Corduroy.
Thank you.
Lyndsay, let's start with your origin story. How did you get started skiing?
I have some of my earliest memories are of being in daycare at the ski area. So my mom was a ski instructor and a coach and would put me in daycare while she worked. And so I just remember being in that daycare room at Gore Mountain in upstate New York, one of the best ski areas in New York, I would say. And like playing with the toys in daycare, and then would do like a half day of a ski lesson as, like a 3-year-old. Like I started skiing right when I got out of diapers, basically. And yeah, I have very fond memories of being super little, like in the line of kids in a big pizza with the ski instructor, coming out of daycare at Gore, and then, skiing between my mom's legs down like the Black Diamond bump runs, saying, "Go faster, mommy." And just like, it was such a family thing. And it was really my mom, myself, and my brother, and he being 4 years older was just like that much more developed as a skier than me. So that was like who I looked up to. And I remember like the three of us on the old triple chair at Gore, riding up and skiing together. And yeah, those were the days for sure.
And I guess you never looked back. You were chasing after your brother for a long time, presumably both just free skiing, and presumably that led you into gates at some point.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, he was on the race team, and my mom was coaching the J5s. And that was just the natural progression. There was never a question of like if I wanted to do it. That's what we did.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to my son as well. Didn't have a choice in the matter. So you grew up ski racing in upstate New York. You continued racing through college at Skidmore and Saratoga. So you basically the bug bit you at age 2 or shortly thereafter, and you've never been vaccinated, I guess, from whatever.
Yeah, really took it far. We like talking with my mom about, as an adult in my career, it's just, she's like, she set the example for me as a coach. And then my brother also coached me. They both coached me. And then I really took it quite a bit further than them.
Yeah. So let's talk about, how far you've taken it, right? So you graduate college. Is skiing the first thing that you pursue, or did you come back to skiing after some interlude?
A minor interlude that, after going to the classic small private liberal arts college education experience, all my peers, go get their real jobs. And, I'm fresh off my environmental studies bachelor's degree. And so I got a job, an internship that turned into a full-time job with a small wind power company, renewable energy company in Manchester, Vermont, where we also lived when I was a kid and skied and raced at Bromley, the Big B, the Sun Mountain. And so I was living and working in Manchester, Vermont, for about a year with the internship and then the full-time job. And once the summer was fun because I would go out to the wind power sites and like interact with the landowners and, try and get these sites up and running around southern Vermont. And once the winter hit, I couldn't sit at a desk anymore, and I revolted and left the job and was coaching full-time at Bromley and then got a job at Stratton. And that was a real defining moment for me of just like, who am I kidding? I can't do a traditional 9 to 5, or that's not for me at the time, being, 21 years old and full of energy. And I needed to be at the mountain and do it full time, not just, on the weekends.
Right. So coaching took over, if you will, at Stratton. So you stayed local to Vermont. Where else did you coach? Because I know eventually you made your way west to Sunshine and Deep Powder.
Yes. So basically through coaching at Bromley and working at Stratton in the marketing department, I ended up getting a summer job out at Mount Hood, which I wasn't a stranger to. I had done ski camps as a kid, and I even worked as a counselor out there when I was about 18. And so now fast forward to about 21, 22 years old, and I got a job back out there working for a ski shop, like a closeout center, basically. Reliable Racing, my hometown ski shop in Glens Falls, New York, and went out to Mount Hood and ran that ski shop and just did so much networking that to this day are still contacts that I know, coaching colleagues, and my best friends that I met that summer who were living out in Salt Lake and Colorado and in the West and from out there, and were telling me all about how cool skiing in the West was and that I needed to move. And so I met lots of coaches, helped out coaching up on the mountain that summer, and essentially got my first full-time, like, salaried coaching job at Ski Club Vail.
No, that's a pretty good place to get your first full-time coaching position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where did you get started in terms of the age group that you were coaching at the time?
So at Bromley, I was the J6s, still the J.
I don't remember. I mean, I that's what I grew up in, but I don't remember what the age brackets were.
That was like the littlest littles, like 7-year-olds, or under 8, I guess you'd say now. And then, through the networking that I did at Hood, I got hired to be a U16 or a J3 coach, J3 boys coach at Vail. And I remember I was so nervous, and it was such a big deal, right? Like going to Vail. And I was like calling my old colleagues from Bromley saying, like, can I do this? Like, I don't know. I'm so nervous. And it was an amazing learning experience, and especially just not just with coaching the kids, but all of it, like, setting B-net. We watered the hill for the high level races. We worked at the Beaver Creek speed races for the World Cup, slipping, World Cup racetrack. I mean, I absorbed so much that season and learned so much about setting and coaching and just like every aspect of the job that it was really an amazing place to start. I kind of learned it all that first year.
So it was a great learning environment in terms of being thrown straight into the deep end. And it sounds like a wonderful experience in terms of the exposure to everything from World Cup venue preparation
Oh,
to,
yeah.
little kids and wrangling them at the base of the hill.
Right.
So how long did you stay in Vail?
So I not only did I learn a lot about like the coaching job and career through Vail, but I also skied at a lot of new places I'd never been before. I mean, I'd never really been out west. As like a little kid on one trip to Park City, but other than that, I hadn't really skied anywhere. And so I went to Jackson Hole for the first time and Snowbird. And those two ski areas really just made a huge impact on me. I was just blown away really on the steeps, the big mountains, the snow, and the skiers that were there, and how good people were at skiing, and powder skis, and just the whole culture outside
It's
of
remarkable that
coaching.
you say that. I mean, a lot of people would think Vail as being an incredible mountain in and of itself, but I know exactly what you're saying in terms of comparing Vail to a Jackson Hole, which I haven't skied, but I know about it. Snowbird, I have. It's a different caliber of athlete skiing the hill, but generally, by and
Absolutely.
large,
Yeah.
and the terrain is markedly different.
Oh yeah. And just the towns too that surround those two places. And so I went to Jackson was totally blown away, and I got like it got dumped on. So it was just like the best experience ever. And then I also went to Snowbird and felt like it was Jackson with a city. And I thought, wow, you can really have it all here. Coming from East Vale, where I shared a bedroom with roommates, I shared bunk beds with four people in a three-bedroom condo. There's, not much convenience anyway in where I was living. And so once I went to that race at Snowbird as a Vail coach, I was like, this really could be a livable situation. And I think at the time it was a lot more inexpensive in
Right.
the city. And then, skiing at Snowbird was unbelievable. And some of my best friends that I had met on Mount Hood the summer before all lived in Salt Lake and went to college there, and they were like, "Yeah, you gotta move out here."
And I guess you pulled up stakes and moved pretty quickly.
Yeah, so I headed to Salt Lake and I lived there for 10 years coaching and skiing powder and skiing in the backcountry, and I just absolutely loved it there.
That sounds wonderful. So, at what point do you start your own ski camp? You were talking about going to Hood, but you ultimately start Party Beach Ski Camp, which we'll talk about the name because it's definitely different than any other ski camp name for that matter.
So, yeah, so the sort of through line, I would say, in my entire like adult skiing career life is Mount Hood in the summer. I mean, that was as a seasonal worker, coach just from November to April or so. That was how I could continue working, was going to Mount Hood in the summer and coaching for different teams and camps and things like that. And so basically every single summer for the last, 15 years, I've been going out there and was coaching for a local Portland team that was like a year-round on Timberline ski team. And so they'd come up every day from Portland and train and go home. Like they weren't really staying in government camp. And that basically evolved into Party Beach because we were out there all summer long. It wasn't just like a week long camp for kids from around the country. So it was a little more relaxed, I would say, and more fun because it wasn't like we had to just get it all in 5 days and then go home and that was it for the summer. We had like 2.5 months of skiing.
Right.
And so we just, basically out of boredom and creativity, breeds from boredom. And we just wanted to have a good time out there and ski around in a different way than just banging gates, So we would free ski a lot with the kids and hit the park and just try to make it more creative and fun for not only the kids, but for us as coaches, being there every day, all summer long. And so that really evolved into Party Beach, just from like maybe a lack of urgency of, we didn't really feel the need to hammer all day, every day because the kids would burn out.
Right.
Right. And that ultimately is a big foundation of the culture of the camp and the sort of attitude of the camp is, especially for ski racers who get really bogged down in the seriousness and like the business of it, they can get some blinders on. We wanted to kind of revive those ski racers that are getting burnt out and that potentially could hate skiing and not ski again after their racing careers. We wanted to bring them back to the love of it and the fun of it, and just like we can take away those parameters and show you the freedom and the fun of it. And that's what I've had my whole ski racing life, is maybe a little heavy emphasis on the fun and maybe not as much seriousness. And maybe that's why I didn't go, to the US ski team or whatever, or even D1 ski racing. But now that's what's shaped who I am as a coach.
Right.
And influencing kids today is to bring the fun into it. And of course, work hard and hammer when it's time to hammer. But especially out there in the summer, it's just like, when's your next ski race? When it's July, December, January? Like, it's time to like reinvigorate, right?
Yep.
And have fun with it. So
No, it sounds terrific. As I mentioned before we started, my son's a ski racer. He's now in college, but raced FIS and frankly his second year FIS year probably got burnt out. He didn't he wasn't having a good time, and it's a challenge. And I think some of that party atmosphere that you may have brought to it may have changed his attitude. We skied.
Yeah.
He and I skied snowboard this season, and to see his eyes light up to find some steeps and just hammer, but it was wide open bumps and chowder, and kind of that was the kind of snow that we had at the time. But like you need that.
absolutely.
It's good medicine. So when did so Party Beach at least started as a race camp? I don't know when when did it start, and for how long was it purely about racing?
So since myself and my business partner, Marcus Caston, we were coaching this local Portland team racing, and it evolved like from that team into a race camp, but with fun added into it and free skiing as a big part of it. And I think the first at least 2 years, maybe even 3 years of it being officially Party Beach Ski Camps LLC, it was a race camp. Like we had our own gates, and we just basically did the same thing we were doing with this local team, but now it's under our business license. And
Right.
then we evolved into, we love free skiing, and then we sort of like started to brainstorm how we could make it truly more of a free ride camp, as like big mountain and free skiing was sort of coming online with like IFSA, and that's been growing exponentially, while ski racing is not growing as fast anyway, maybe
Right.
stagnating a little bit.
You can
And
say
it just
it's
seems,
flatlined.
yeah, I mean, and yeah, free ride is like blowing up
Yeah.
pretty much. Now it's like a college team thing that you can get a scholarship to go do. And more and more schools are adding that. And, now IFSA is coming under FIS, I think, maybe soon next year. Or anyway, so we were just, yeah, brainstorming like how we could create maybe like this cliff drop feature, and have like the groomers up at Timberline build us like a cliff drop to make, instead of having it be like the park jumps like they have at Hood and the other ski camps that are a lot of park skiing rails and traditional jumps, we wanted big mountain skiing.
Right.
So more of like a cliff drop, and then helping kids. We felt like getting the ski racers to hit the jumps actually really helped their skiing in general, and ski racing, their athletic ability. And so just kind of translating that all into something that was uniquely ours is how it evolved, which has been such a joy. It's so cool. It's so different from anything else up on Hood in the summer. And I think, you know, in the ski world, I think there's not really a camp like ours.
So what does a man-made cliff drop look like? I mean, I can think of the rolls that you might have in a terrain park, or that might be built for rollers for setting gates on top of. But a cliff drop presumably is a sheer face on the backside.
Yeah.
Is that basically what you're
Yeah.
having them build?
Yeah, basically it's kind of like a road gap, or I mean it's turned into a road gap, but when we first started it was just like basically a flat takeoff, sheer wall, and then the landing. Like the transition and landing.
Yep.
And it's evolved from there, and is now like has gotten pretty big, like a big road gap. And we're tweaking it every year to like make the best landing, basically like a steep enough landing. And it's, gone from like a huge huck with speed across like a huge road gap into maybe trying to dial it back more into more precise, not as much speed coming into it to like truly drop like you would in a big mountain situation. So
Interesting. Yeah, I was joking with some friends recently on my travels, and whether or not we'd go off of cliffs, and I did express to them, I was like, you don't get hurt on takeoff or while you're in the air.
so
It's only the landing that
Yep.
that can pose some issues.
Right, and up on Timberline in the summer, it's not soft powder landing. So
No.
that's where the landing is really important, to be steep enough that you're not like, slamming down on a flat.
Right.
And dialing in the speed is so important. And so that's like, I think what's so powerful for our campers and us, the coaches, is the repetition of hitting this cliff drop over and over, a lot more than you would maybe like out on a powder day at Snowbird. We're just hiking up there and getting this repetition and the comfortability in the air, dialing in the speed in the landing. It's not soft powder, but it's slush. And then with the right speed and the right slope of the landing, it can still be fairly soft or like forgivable on the joints
Yeah.
as us coaches get older.
Yeah. Exactly. It's all these things look enticing, but as one's body ages, it becomes a little bit more difficult.
Yes.
So you've been running the camp for a number of years. It's morphed from a pure racing camp into a much more free ride big mountain, which I think, as far as I know, you're unique in that regard. I don't know of any other summer camps, at least at Hood, or in the U.S. for that matter, that teach free ride. Am I right?
Yeah, no, you're right. There's some competition in the Southern Hemisphere in this, like their winter, our summer, but it's a little different because it's, winter scenario and like free skiing the mountains down there. So it's not quite as controlled, I would say, in that we have this specific feature that we can session and like really work on dialing in technique. I would say that some of our competition is more similar to the campers' winter ski environment. So
right. And what are the other, aside from throwing themselves off of a man-made cliff, what are the other types of drills that are there any that are unique or specific to free ride, or is it something that someone who's been to a racing camp would be familiar with, or is it like a mixture of everything?
Yeah, I would say it's a mixture of everything. I would say some ski racers would recognize what we're doing out there in terms of the drills, the free ski drills. But we're all on powder skis. We ask the campers to show up on the skis that they use in the winter. So they're not on race skis or like a carving ski necessarily. We want them to ski on the skis that they would ski on in the winter, or some of them do compete in like a competition program, IFSA. So we're all out on powder skis, and we're trying to establish good balance and technique with these free ride kids who, a lot of them did not grow up ski racing. And of course, we all know that ski racing provides the best foundation as a skier.
We'll keep it among friends, but yes, that is true.
It's so true. You can always kind of recognize someone if you're on the chair watching them ski. Oh, that person probably grew up ski racing. That like very distinct technique, which is, maybe some people would scoff at, but they're balanced and they can carve. So,
yeah, body position is stacked. It's
right.
Their inclination and angulation and upper
right.
lower body separation, et cetera, et cetera. So yes.
Right. And so we recognize that during the winter season, some of these big mountain free ski programs, you go out and you rip around and you have fun and you ski powder and have fun with your team. But I don't know if a lot of them do focus on the fundamental drills, or maybe not as much or as heavily. And so we feel that the summer, is such an important time to come back to the fundamentals and like to get balanced and work on your technique to then apply that to your skiing. So we definitely focus a lot on drills, but we try to do it in a fun way. And I think for us as coaches, it's really important for the campers to understand why and how does this apply to you personally. Like if you don't have ownership and a deep understanding of like what this is doing to your skiing, then why would you, we don't want you to just go through the motions, right? And I think, at least for me, growing up ski racing, I sometimes had questions, or I went through the motions, or I didn't really understand the why, and was told like the same thing over and over again, and I didn't truly understand like what more pressure at the top of the turn meant. And so I really try in my coaching philosophy to make sure that the athlete really understands why.
Yeah, I think that is super helpful for the athletes to get it. There are some who just take direction and you tell them to do something and they do it, and like that's fine. But then there are others who want to understand the rationale behind it. Mm-hmm. And coaches don't always provide that rationale. So one other thing, so shifting gears slightly, which is you are also coaching the US Para Alpine ski team. How did you come to do that? That's a little bit different, coaching disabled versus non-disabled athletes. I'm curious how life led you to that position.
Right, exactly. And I actually don't, before this job, I didn't have experience working with adaptive ski program or disabled athletes at all, really. So, again, that through line of, Mount Hood in the summer, networking and knowing how the small world of teams and coaches that flock to Mount Hood, a coach friend that I know from years ago worked with the Para Alpine team for a long time. And then once FIS took over and the US ski team took back the para team from the Olympic training center, it went under different jurisdiction, I guess, recently. My coach friend took the director job for the US ski team and then gave me a call, and basically this opportunity came up. And it was intriguing to me. It took me a minute to think about it because it was a lot different of a commitment for me, coaching a lot more travel than I was used to. But I was intrigued and I said, let's go for it. And the coach friend that hired me, I asked, I've never worked with disabled athletes before. Is that okay? And how do I reconcile that basically? And he had faith in me and kind of valued the fact that I've brought some creativity and alternative ideas into my business with the ski camp and for me as a coach. And so he thought that would apply pretty well to working with disabled ski racers too. And I think it's presented new challenges for me, but that's kind of exciting with just how the team is a team of unique individuals. They are all different disabilities, different limitations, and different strengths. Each individual is their own case study, basically. And so it's a lot. It's ski racing has a lot of variables that come at you, and basically controlling those variables as much as you can is the challenge of the sport. And then we've added with the para team, it's you add countless other variables. And so it's a lot that these athletes are dealing with.
Yeah. So for the uninitiated, myself included, there, like you said, there are a number of different variables. A disabled athlete might be skiing in a sit ski, or they may be skiing on one leg without riggers, I think.
Yep.
Or they may have some other, they may be blind. They may be, right, or another limb or something that may be affected. I guess, and theoretically, they could have two skis on, but may have some other disability with respect to one or both of them. So yeah, like you say, the variables are maybe not quite infinite, but they're quite a number. So how do you, again, for the uninitiated, I assume those athletes are grouped into different categories and compete against other athletes with similar type of disabilities. And then, how do you, so to kind of walk me and everybody who's listening, through that for our benefit when we watch, I think the World Championships are on now or shortly.
Right. So, yeah, so it's kind of broken up into a couple different categories, and then there's like subcategories within. But basically, when we go to a race, we have the visually impaired, the standing, and then the sitting categories. And
Okay.
then it's like women and then men. And so within all of those categories, there's variability within the degree of the disability. And so, for example, we don't have any visually impaired skiers on the team right now. And so we have standing and sitting men and women. But within the standing women, we have in that group, it varies anywhere from, missing or like a smaller arm, one arm. They can be, like you said, there's a few that are standing, so like 2 legs but with outriggers, 2 legs, 2 skis without outriggers, and then the sitting has varying degrees of disability within, like, if the athlete, for example, has legs or is an amputee, double amputee, below knee, above knee. I mean, it's kind of overwhelming, to be honest, like all the degrees of disability. However, like, their ability is amazing. It's really blown me away how capable these athletes are given what they deal with on a daily basis and for most of their lives. It's really opened my eyes to just how strong humans are and how adaptable we are. Like, I'm like missing half my arm, but that's not going to hold me back. I can go ski race and do anything,
Yeah.
And like the nuances of the sport are still something that I'm learning about. This is my second season with the team. There's a lot of nuance and rules about the factor that the certain disability gets, with basically how much time can be taken off of their raw time based on the disability, and how that kind of stacks up among their competition.
Yep.
And that's
Something like a golf handicap, or
exactly,
or in NASCAR, the based on your age,
like
that
basically
factor,
the handicap
yeah.
of the time, but they call it a factor
Yep.
in the para world, and that has a lot to do with their specific disability. They're seen by a doctor. They're basically assessed on snow in a race scenario, and then they get their specific factor. And so again, like, all these additional variables that come into play, it changes things quite a bit. But then ultimately, for me as a coach and my background, I care about the technique and the, like, what's fast.
Right.
And that has translated for me and how I can coach them, given that I don't have a background in adaptive sports. I can still see, like, the line, there's still like a fast line, right? The ski, it's the same skis.
Same, yeah. A
And you
line
still
is
need
still
to
right.
bend them, yeah, and like arc a turn. And so that's kind of a relief anyway for me, knowing that at least certain things do apply and like stay the same, even though there's like so much else that's changing, and there's so many variables that you can get kind of bogged down with it. But ultimately, like, a fast ski racing line is fast universally. So
Yeah. I was going to say there are some things that are transferable between, again, the disabled world and the non-disabled world, right?
Right.
Whether it's line, tactics, those things are going to remain largely the same.
Yeah.
presumably the mental aspects, i.e., visualization or the mental state that you're in before you push out of the start gate, etc.
Yes.
Same, regardless. But it's the technique that becomes more challenging for the non-disabled to understand, perhaps.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, is there any formal training? I have a coaching certification. There's no mention of this, coaching para athletes at all, at least through the level 100 and level 200, which I've completed. So like, where is there formal training, or is this, on the job training as you've described?
I mean, for me in my journey, it's been on the job training and just absorbing everything that I can every day and learning from the athletes. I think that's been a huge aspect that is so different in this dynamic versus like coaching high school age kids. The sort of dynamic of I'm the coach, you're the young teenage athlete, like you listen to me and I tell you what to do and you do it, is a lot different with this team of adult athletes that have been doing it a long time. And I've learned a lot from them. I mean, I have to learn from them in order to help them. I can't always just say, do this and don't ask questions, right? Like, we have to work together, and it's much more of a give and take than the dynamic of like coaching youth athletes, basically. So that's been a huge difference. And just, basically asking them, like, what's it like for you to ski? And kind of going from there. And how do we work with what you've got going on?
Right.
And like play up to your strengths. And that's been a much different process than what I've developed as coaching able-bodied athletes.
And speaking of the travel and the time commitment, you're traveling presumably not just domestically, but internationally. What is a normal, to the extent that there is a normal competition season? What does it look like?
It's very similar to what I'm used to in terms of the season. It's just a lot more travel as we all live in different places as the team and the staff. Of course, the ski team is based in Park City, but just a handful of athletes live in Utah and the rest live all over the country. So we travel to get together to train and to race every event that we have. So, like most high level ski teams, we're going down to Chile at the end of the summer, September. We go to Colorado or Canada for November. We start racing December in Europe. And I'm about to go back to Europe for the 4th time this winter for races back and forth. What I appreciate about the para team versus the able-bodied ski team is we travel and compete, but we go home and have a little break. The team needs more time to recover. And so it's been nice. It's a lot of back and forth, but it's also nice to be able to come home more often than some of my colleagues on the able-bodied US ski team circuit that spend, like months and months at a time in Europe away from home.
Right. So you still live out of a suitcase, but you do unpack it on occasion.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. Shifting gears again a bit. You've coached at 2 Olympics. You've coached Sarah Schlepper in the Alpine events, both in Pyeongchang and Beijing. I guess, I don't know if you can announce it, if there is, does she have plans for Cortina next year?
Absolutely.
I would imagine. Of course she does. That was my expectation.
Yeah.
And at World Champs, I don't know if you were with her at World Champs this year. Mm-hmm. You were. Okay. So how did that, let's just start at the beginning. here you are, coaching someone, at the highest level of the sport. How did you come to get to know Sarah and the rest of the Mexican team, and coach them at these events?
Yeah, so again, through coaching and a little bit of a connection to Mount Hood, I had some athletes I've worked with for a long time from the Mount Hood area that were going to her ski camp out in Austria in the summer in Hintertux. It was like in August, I want to say, back in 2016 or 2017. And I was going to go with the brother and sister, these two athletes from Mount Hood, and bring them to her camp and like kind of coach them and travel with them and stuff. And so we go out to Hintertux, and I met Sarah. I mean, I always knew who she was, of course. Growing up ski racing, she's a legend, but I got to really get to know her and work with her and coach with her at her camp out in Hintertux. And we just really hit it off as friends, and connected pretty instantly. And just were friends, essentially. And I knew she was still racing for Team Mexico and planning on doing her World Championships in St. Moritz in 2017, that coming winter. And at that winter, I was traveling in Europe. I wasn't coaching full time that season, so I was out in Chamonix and traveling, and I went to a few races as like a fan that year. And I reached out to her when that World Championships was coming up, and I just said, I'm rooting for you, and I'd love to come watch and cheer for you as a fan. Let me know like what you're up to, basically. And just the stars aligned in that I think the coach that she hired to help her during that event got injured or something and couldn't make it. And I messaged her like at the right time, and she said, I need you, come for 10 days. I'm doing all 5 events. I need you to come be the coach. And I was like, okay, that's amazing. I'm in.
Yep.
And so I showed up and coached her in all 5 events and represented her at the team captains meetings, and just like learned so much about all of that and was the big event that was. And kind of from there translated that into, the following year, the Olympics in Pyeongchang, some World Cup races that we did together leading up to the Olympics, which was honestly one of the coolest experiences because it was just regular season World Cup ski races that I went with her to and represented her at. And man, that was some of the coolest experiences of my life is being with her at those big events and just soaking it all in, really.
Tell me a little bit about that in terms of what it was interesting. When I first started officiating at races, somebody who had officiated at a World Cup or two, settled my nerves by saying, guess what? They both have starts. There's a bunch of gates, and then there's a finish. They're like, it's the exact same thing. It doesn't. What is similar to coaching a U16 at a local scored race versus a World Cup or the Olympics? What are you doing that's exactly the same, and what are the things that are different?
To be honest, I think why it went well for me and Sarah and why like I've gotten to be where I am is because I've wanted to help athletes have fun with it at every level and like kind of keep it light. I mean, there's enough nerves and pressure that you put on yourself personally. So for me to like help any athlete that I'm coaching have fun with it and, have all the information that they need and talk about, what they need to focus on or whatever in their technique. Sure. But when it comes down to it, it's about the mental side of things, isn't it? Like at the highest level, as a U16 that's super nervous, it's the mental game, and helping calm the nerves at the start is, I think, something that I've like found to be one of my strengths. And for Sarah, she's competitive, and no matter the age, she wants to ski to her best ability and beat the person in front of her, and that comes out naturally for her. So to like just have fun with it and keep it light and just enjoy and just make things go as smoothly as possible for her and for any athletes is what I'm there to do.
And what is your secret in terms of keeping it light at the start? Is it a flower lei necklace, or blow up palm tree, or something a little different?
Oh, that's strictly at Party Beach.
Okay.
That would never translate to a ski race. But it's just like laughing, listening to music, joking, dancing, like whatever it is, kind of really distracting the athletes from getting too, nervous and getting the blinders on and like working themselves up too much. And of course, everyone's different in terms of, do you want to be hyped up or do you want to be calmed down? And that's been interesting to like learn different individuals and like what they need. But for the most part, like the majority of my coaching experience has been with women, high school age girls, older, Sarah or whoever it is. And of course, being a female coach, that's sort of been my mission, is to empower these women. And so a lot of them, we play music and dance and laugh and sing and eat Skittles and, have fun with it.
Yeah.
Because I think ultimately if you're having fun, you're going to thrive.
Yeah, you perform better when you're enjoying yourself than when you're not. You mentioned, empowering other women, being a female coach. There aren't a ton of female coaches in the ski racing industry, and I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, to the extent that like more broadly, whether it's free skiing, freestyle, sort of the other disciplines. Like, what can be done to foster a larger female coaching contingent? Because I do think it's warranted. I know from my own son's experience, like I would say some of his best coaches were females. They just knew how to handle him, not from a technical perspective, but from a mental skills perspective. And that might be just unique. It's anecdotal rather than science-based evidence. But how do you? What has your experience been as a female coach in the industry, and how do we get more?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and an age-old question that I hear a lot and deal with a lot for my own personal career and just like my colleagues and the challenges that we face as women in like a life trajectory, and like what comes up that would cause you to maybe leave coaching full time, or at least at where I'm traveling constantly, and that might not be as sustainable, like when you start a family, for example. And I would say, I've tried my hardest to continue to coach at this level, because this is not all I know, but this is what I've done my whole career, and I enjoy it, and this is like the lifestyle that I truly enjoy. But I could foresee, if and when I want to start a family, like what is that going to look like? I'm not going to be able to travel as much as I do now. And those are questions that are daunting and limiting, for where I could go personally with this career. But I would say, just as my mission as a coach being a female coach and working with young women is making it a positive experience. And that could be any coach, not just a female. A male coach making it a positive experience is going to help that athlete not burn out and hate the sport. If you don't hate the sport, you could give back. And if you see, like I saw my mom and my brother coaching, well, that's what I'm going to do too. Those were my examples, the positive role models. And so that it was an easy pathway for me to see I can do that too. And I enjoy working with kids, like a teacher or,
Right.
coaching a different sport. And so, yeah, I think just like whether it's a male or a female coach, it's a positive experience is going to allow that athlete that you're coaching to continue like making the sport their own and like kind of creating their identity around it versus stepping away from it and having negative experiences and memories of it.
But presumably there are different jobs that would be more conducive to, a lifestyle that one would want, i.e. traveling with the US ski team, whether it's the para team or the non-para team, is difficult, right? You're on the road for a very long period of time. That can be challenging. If you're a coach at a ski academy, and I know you spent some time at Romark, at least you have a home base and your travel isn't quite as much. I know from FIS racing that it can still be extensive, but it's not as great. And then, even so keep stepping down, U16, you're traveling less. At U14, U12, like,
right.
you find there are probably opportunities at different levels of the sport that accommodate whatever it is that one wants to do with their life outside of coaching.
Right.
So I think it just, I think you've been navigating that for some time now. It sounds like you're still interested in how did you describe it? You're not a vagabond, but you travel a fair amount.
Yeah, I travel a fair amount, more than I have coaching at a ski academy, and so it's my life looks a little different now, and it's constantly evolving, and so I'm open to experiences and opportunities. I want to say yes to opportunities. I've always been like that. In my friendships and like activities and in my professional career. And so this current job, my role with the para team, was an opportunity that I wanted to say yes to and explore because it was a new opportunity and experience for me. So it's just like rounding out like my coaching career.
Sounds wonderful. One last thing before we wrap up. I understand that you're a ski photographer too. Do you get a chance to take your camera out and to shoot photos, or is that catch as catch can, as they say?
I love to ski in front of the camera. And do some like iPhone stuff.
Got it. All right.
But I've always been a ham when it comes to stuff like that. And that goes back to when I got a job as the snow reporter at Stratton back when I was in my early 20s, and I would make videos for the marketing department about like the conditions at Stratton, and I loved it so much, and that evolved into skiing and shooting photos, and it was an easy thing to do in Utah because the snow is so good and there were so many photographers there I could ski with and get amazing powder shots and groomer shots. And now I live in the gorge near Mount Hood, where the snow is a little different and the shooting opportunities and my availability is a lot different. So I haven't been able to do that a ton this year, although I miss it, and I am looking to do that more, but I feel like I need to travel more to do that. And so it's just another thing to take me away from home.
Yeah, well, you just keep a disposable camera in your pocket. You can whip out at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
Well, with that, thank you very much for joining Fresh Corduroy today. I really appreciate it. A lot of fun talking with you about a very entertaining career and life. So, wishing you the best.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
You are most very welcome. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of Fresh Corduroy, this time with Lyndsay Strange. I thought the conversation with Lyndsay was really interesting in that she found her way and continues to find her way through a career in skiing and ski racing in a variety of ways. Some of it is opportunistic and being in the right place at the right time, being called upon to coach at the World Championships, which led to coaching at 2 Olympics so far, with probably a third on the horizon, to evolving a race camp into a free ride and free skiing camp, understanding the need and the fun that kids have doing it, and continues to grow Party Beach Ski Camp. I mean, any camp that talks about a party beach on the snow is something that I'm interested in. So hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did. Lyndsay's an interesting person, and I look forward to following her career as it continues to evolve. And thank you for listening. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening to the pod. And if you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to leave a review. That helps a lot as well. Music at the beginning and end is by Craig Zolan from his album Calder's Universe, which can be found on Spotify. Thank you. See you next week.